Hello, everyone. I'm Ernie Humphrey, the CEO of FP&A Webinars. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today, FP&A Success, Empowering Business Agility and Impacting Decisions. I would like to thank our webinar partner for today's webinar, Centage, a world leader in automated budgeting and planning software solutions for small, medium-sized organizations whose strong commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible. Despite the increased availability of data and advances in technology, most companies fail to conquer the last mile of FP&A, informing more timely and impactful decision-making across the enterprise. How do companies identify key company and departmental performance drivers? How do companies understand the dynamics of these drivers, and what data and analysis company leaders need to make the right decisions at the right time? Today, you will discover how FP&A leaders are leveraging business partnering in conjunction with the right technology to deliver business intelligence to company leaders when they need it and how they want to consume it. Before I delve into the content, I'm going to offer a few quick words about FP&A webinars, cover a few housekeeping items, and then I'm going to review our learning objectives for the webinar as they offer our value proposition to you for investing an hour of your valuable time with us today. FP&A Webinars offers webinars designed to empower FP&A success at companies of all sizes across all industries. We only do what we do best, webinars. Now for the exciting housekeeping items. For those of you interested in CTP or FP&A credit for today's webinar, you'll have to answer all the polling questions during the webinar and remain on for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions regarding CTP or FP&A credit, please send an email to ernie@360thoughtleadership.com. Note that I have also provided my email address in the chat area of your GoToWebinar control panel. Speaking of your GoToWebinar control panel, I'd love to hear from you today throughout the presentation. I encourage you to ask questions in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll do my best to get to your questions at the tail end of the webinar for time remaining for our Q&A session, but fear not, if I don't get to your questions, I will follow up with you directly after the webinar. Finally, we appreciate your time in taking a short survey that will launch at the end of the webinar today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. Now let's take a look at our learning objectives for today. I'd like you to be able to understand how to empower strategic agility at your company, how to impact decision-making at the executive and departmental levels at your company, understand key drivers of FP&A success in today's world, and to identify specific opportunities to increase the strategic value of the FP&A function at your company. So how are we going to accomplish our learning objectives for today's webinar? Well, first, we're going to start with what I call the foundations of strategic agility. We'll cover FP&A business partnering, what that looks like, key success factors, and then we'll talk about FP&A analytics, maturity, and then we'll move into driver-based planning, which I believe is the foundation for strategic agility. And then we'll move to a discussion on business intelligence and how done right facilitates data-driven decision-making. We'll talk about key drivers in terms of company value, but then we'll take that down a level in terms of departmental performance. So my personal preference is, now that we have all this data that's available, I like somewhat of a bottom-up approach. So we definitely want to have those key drivers, and we want to have the alignment of those drivers. But one of the things that we should be looking to do is to deliver the information to the departmental managers that impacts performance of their employees, which align with our strategic goals and our company values. And then we'll share some drivers of FP&A success. In doing so, we'll also look at some survey results, and then I'll offer a few closing thoughts, and then any time that we have left over will be for our Q&A session. So let's talk a little bit about business partnering, and this is getting more and more attention in the FP&A world, and I'm very glad to see this. So I'm going to share some of the content from one of my strategic partners, BPI, the Business Partnering Institute. So if you've never visited their website, I encourage you to do so. And so it's really a mindset. So I really love this graphic that they've shared with us in past webinars. It's about the how, the what, and the why. So it's how are we doing things? How are we driving performance management, creating value insights, building trusted relationships, communicating with impact? Well, these are the things that we should be looking to do from the FP&A function and the finance function. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to influence decision. And why are we doing this? We're trying to optimize business performance. So if you look at this, it's pretty clear that we need to have good relationships with company leaders across the enterprise. So in finance, we need to understand the mindset of those across the enterprise, our departmental leaders. We need to really understand what they need in terms of improving performance, also what they need in terms of if we use a budget, what they need to come up with the right budget to reach the strategic objectives of our company. And then in terms of that dynamic planning, what information do we need to provide and help them get relative to KPIs that can help them monitor and manage the performance that at the end of the day increase our company value. So again, I think business partnering is absolutely a foundation in order to impact decision making across the enterprise. Again, I think that's the last mile of FP&A. So I think a lot of companies are putting a lot more effort into the FP&A function, but the vast majority I see and talk to, they're still falling short. So you want to measure how you're impacting decisions, influencing decisions, and that is really what we want to do. We want to inform decision. So it's not that we want to do away with intuition. We want to back up intuition with data and facts and get everyone across the enterprise, the company leaders thinking in that mindset. So just a few key areas of strategic business partnerings, courtesy of our strategic partners at FP&A Trends, Larissa Melnichuk. So if you've never been to the FP&A Trends website, they have some great thought leadership in FP&A. So what we really need, the alignment of the FP&A function needs to be aligned with business operations, and we need to help them acquire business knowledge and influence decision making. And what we've really seen a shift in the FP&A professional from what happened to what should happen and how to execute change. So we're trying to impact the decision. We're not just trying to do, in a sports terms, what is the instant replay. So that's what we've seen in the past. We want to get to what should happen and then offer insights into how to execute change. And that is definitely something that business partnering facilitates. And then the job is both strategic and operational in focus. And then we need to get folks investing in relationships, challenges, and unlocking strategic opportunities across the enterprise. So from my perspective, when I was in finance and we had FP&A discussions, we were really in a silo in the corner. We weren't relationship people. We were looking at the company financial statements, and that was about it. So we weren't really having these strategic conversations. We weren't trying to understand the value that dynamic planning could have for our organization. So we need to get ourselves out of our shell. So in most cases, business partnering, this requires training. And in most cases, the best way to do this is to have a formal program. And we have also webinars that really focus on business partnering. If you'd like to get more depth into business partnering, again, we have webinars and also our strategic partners at the Business Partnering Institute, they have some great content as well. So one of the things that we need to do to kind of set the stage of our folks in finance and is we need to change our mindset a little bit. So again, back in the day, we used to, all right, I want to minimize cost. I want to do efficiency. I want to eliminate risk. I just want to do data and reporting. I want to understand the numbers, and I've got kind of a fixed mindset. These are the things on my plate. These are the numbers I want. These are how I look at the numbers. I always look back. I'm always looking back. I'm not really looking forward. So how do we change the mindset? We want to look to maximize value creation. So what does that mean? What information and analysis are we providing to impact decisions? And how does the quality of the decisions that we're informing increase the company drivers, company value drivers? And then not you want to have efficiency, but you also want to look at effectiveness, doing the right things. So we want to take efficiency in mind, but we also want to look at the ROI of investing in areas where we might not have invested before, such as investing in getting information, investing in new technology to make sure that we offer, maybe it's a dashboard or some sort of analytical tools. And then we want to move from a mindset of, I think it's almost a fear of risk, to what are the right risks to take. So taking the right risk, being mindful of those risks, again, educated decisions regarding risk across the enterprise, operational risk, financial risk. And then we want to move from data and reporting to insights and recommendations. So if we are going to be the ones who push out a report, we want to deliver the story behind the numbers. So again, we talk about that on a webinar in and of itself, so we can certainly dive deeper there. And then instead of understanding the numbers, we want to understand the business. We want to understand how the pieces of the business fit together and how the different pieces of the business impact our key value drivers. And we want to move towards more of a growth and innovation mindset. And then business partnering is really the foundation for getting those ideas and pushing those up to the executive level. So in a good business partnering program, there's a discussion about what do you think, what do you need in your department to offer more value to the company? Are you seeing opportunities that you don't think we're taking care of? What are some inherent barriers to success? And then the projects that come out of your business partnering discussions are going to more than pay for the cost of investing in this program. So I strongly encourage you to do even more research on business partnering. Again, Business Partnering Institute is a good place to find some great content, and also on the FP&A Trends website. So I like to give professionals a framework, if possible, to look at where they're at, right? So this model is courtesy of FP&A Trends. So what I like to do is, when you're looking at areas that you want to manage more efficiently or effectively, you want to look at, okay, where are we now? Where do we want to go? And then how do we get there? So in terms of maybe your business partnership maturity model, maybe it's not formal yet, but you want to go get there. So I love that we have these four pillars, right, of what defines a basic state to what we should strive for, the leading state. So you have the business knowledge. Again, relates back to earlier comments that I made. You want a strong, holistic knowledge of the business and the interrelationships across our departments. You want to look at the degree of influence that your FP&A and finance leaders have. What you really want to strive for is that chief trusted advisor. So you're involved in decision making. You act as a sounding board. So this all comes with that business partnering, right? So once you say you're in finance, once you have sat down with your sales leaders and they understand that you're trying to help and we're all trying to work together, they are going to come to you and ask questions about tactics or things that they should use. Imagine this: marketing coming to finance asking questions, HR coming to finance. So they're aware that we have the company value at the top, and we understand how all the pieces fit together, and we're trying to not be Mr. or Mrs. No, which is what finance is thought of, and sometimes FP&A as well. We want to let them know that we are a sounding board, and we're looking to make them successful, right? And their success means company success. And we, of course, we want to look at soft skills in today's world, and this is definitely a tightrope to walk, but you have to be confident in challenging the business and speaking up. So we need to facilitate a culture of deliberative discussion. Now, that's not arguing, it's just being able to have a conversation. And imagine this: the conversations that are based on data and facts rather than arguing from intuition. Well, I've been doing this 20 years and I see this and I see that. Well, someone might say, well, John, I understand that, but we've been looking at data from our company for the last 2 years, and we've been looking at industry data, and we just see trends going this way. And a lot of times there's room in the middle. So when you're having a conversation, it's important on the soft skills to know where to push and where not to push. And then you have to have the ability to persuade. And then you want to be looked at as an established storyteller. So you need to tell the story behind the numbers, the story behind your analysis, the story behind your side as to what you need, right, for yourself and for your department to add more value to the company. And then we're going to have to look towards analytics. So we want to be look to be leveraging modern analytical models which facilitate dynamic decision making. And dynamic decision making is really what facilitates business, what I call business agility. So we need to be able to react, hopefully in almost real time, to things that we can forecast that matter, but also things that we cannot forecast. So if we're married to our budget, and our budget drives everything, and then fundamental things change in our assumptions, the market does certain things, an acquisition opportunity comes up, then we are going to be stuck, and we're going to lose out on strategic opportunities and maybe lose our competitive advantage. Along with that, we also would look towards advanced business intelligence analytics. So we want to figure out, so we have to have the right information, the right data. We have to make sure it's clean, and then we have to get that information into a software that allows us to do certain types of analysis. And then just as importantly is, how do we create reports, and how do we create and deliver dashboards that matter? So how can we customize these dashboards? So the information that goes to the executives is probably going to be different than the exact information that goes to your departmental leaders. So the departmental leaders will have more execution focused KPIs, and then your CFO and CEO, they'll have more high level dashboards. And then what that'll do at your executive level, they'll see a trend, and then that'll motivate them to say, and hopefully type into a software, boom, boom, boom. Hey, John, what's going on? I see the cost of AR operations is ticking up. What's going on? And John, the AR manager, will go right to his dashboard and see where his KPIs are going, right, in the right direction, in the wrong directions. Hey, we had an acquisition. Hey, we saw, this is just seasonality that we've seen. So you're really creating this culture of collaborative decision making, rather than the CFO looking at one number and saying, okay, this number went up or went down, we have to do X, Y, Z. So you're informing the decision, and you're also changing the decision making process. So you're getting information analysis, so you're involved in decision making, you're impacting decisions, and the bigger impact that you have, the more value that you're bringing across the enterprise. So some more content from our partners at BPI, the path to successful business partnering. So how do you accelerate your influence and impact? You want to get your team and your operating model in place. So this is the business partnering program. And then you want to launch a development program. It has to be a priority. You have to make it so it's concrete, specified very well. It's not going to come overnight. You have to practice, fail, and learn. So there has to be a culture of things that we may do in the business partnering arena. They may not be perfect this time, but we have to not punish people from failing. That's when you learn the most. And then you want to look at some of your folks who are what I'd call your best business partners. So if you look at the 4 dimensions that we had as far as effective business partnering, these people are really experts in all these levels. So how do we leverage these people to get everyone up to the same level of business partnering? And then you have to, this support, it's ideal for it to come to the top, from the CEO, and then you've got to motivate the team, and then you have to get folks into this growth culture. So I like this slide. So you got to get the foundation in place, you got to invest in the development, and then you also have to invest in the execution. But just as important is, what is the value after how do we measuring success? And so how do we make this a continuous improvement process? How is this part of our onboarding process? How do we tweak our program? How do we have continuing education so that we keep this as a critical part of our business and make it even more valuable going forward? So So I said one of the pillars of strategic agility was business partnering. The other one is analytics maturity. Some of those points, as you will see, are related. Again, I love to offer a framework for folks to see, okay, where am I at? Where do I want to go? This framework was developed by the FP&A International Board, so thank you to them for this great content, which we leverage. So analytics maturity is all about how do we get the right information to the right time at the right people. So how do we take the information, which is the right information, communicate this, analyze it, tell the story, and also allow folks to ask questions. And so again, we have different states, developing, intermediate, and leading. And then what we'll see is, which I really love, is you can, if you want to break down all this content here, you look at it, people, process, and technology, right? So over the left we have process, and then all the way over to the right we have an integrating planning process. And then if we look at people, again, collaboration here, minimal, and then we have real-time collaboration. And then if we look at technology, we have planning and modeling tools, BI tools, and then we have advanced analytics. And also on process, you want to look at analytical matrices, and then you want leading analytical matrices. So you can really take a look at where you're at now. Are you basic, developing, defined, advanced, leading? So what does it take me to get from 2 to 3, 3 to 4? What I've seen and still see is we still see a lot of companies in 1 or 2. So then it's a matter of, okay, in terms of analytics maturity, what do I need to do to impact decision, right, on the analytics front? What do we need to do in terms of people, process, technology? What is the ROI? How does that integrate with our business partnering? So these things aren't done in silo. So we need to be looking at these things at the same time. So how do they work together, right, to increase the value of the FP&A function? So again, we have basic, developing, define, advanced, and leading. So just I want to go ahead and benchmark you. Ask our first polling question. So just curious from the audience perspective, how you would characterize the current level of FP&A analytics maturity at your company. And this will help drive the content that I have for the remainder of the webinar. I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our questions here today. Those of you interested in receiving CTP or FP&A credit, you'll have to answer all of our polling questions here today. So in order to be mindful of our time, I'm just going to leave the polling question up for another few seconds, and then we're going to go ahead and take a look at the results, and then we will revisit this topic a little bit later in the webinar, and we'll see where the audience was compared to some research that I was involved in on our FP&A empowerment survey. So I go ahead and close, and let's go ahead and share. It's just about, I think I'm pleasantly surprised that we've got 47% in the developing. I think it was a little bit lower than that, but basic and developing we have 68%, and it's good to see 23% of you are on the define stage. So I would say that those of you on the define stage are on the cusp of really conquering that last mile of FP&A. However, that's not to say that those of you who are in basic or developing should be discouraged, and it's not. You may not be as far away as you think. So as you look at projects to improve technology and business partnering, there are possibilities in the right culture that you can really move pretty quickly into that defined or advanced stage. And I think in the defined stage, you're absolutely at the case where you are on some level impacting decisions and informing decision making on some level, but we want to look to, how can we maximize the impact that we're having. So thank you very much, everyone, for answering your question. So now let's take a little a little step back, I guess, and talk about impacting decisions. And then one of the other pillars that I had spoken about in the agenda was driver-based planning. So I know we've talked about driver-based planning, those of you who've been on webinars before, but I think this is very important for everyone, and it's always good to offer new color around driver-based planning and its importance. So just to make it simple, like I keep it simple, you want to identify factors that drive company value. And what I'm seeing in the CFO research is the factors that drive company value are changing, and we're starting to see more companies identify metrics that are related to non-financial assets. So we're absolutely looking at customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction and employee productivity. So we'll go through some specific uh, examples there. So even that can be difficult for certain companies if you don't have the right technology. So you want to make sure that there is strategic alignment on the factors that are driving the company value at the highest level. And you want to make sure that you are making sure that you're verifying that those drivers are still the company drivers, uh, at least yearly, probably quarterly, maybe even monthly. So we want to make sure that we are looking at the right drivers. So if you have a significant change, maybe in your industry, in your business and market regulations, you need to make sure that you are make sure that that flows down to the rest of your company strategy, because significant changes in those, it should change your company strategy. If not, you're in gridlock, so you have no strategic agility, and we don't want that. And then the last two are really places where there needs to be more education, but a lot of the systems out there and the analytical tools are helping companies. But you need to establish relationships between the KPIs and the value drivers at that macro level. And then what do we want to do? We want to incentivize actions that impacts performance captured by KPIs that impact that company value. So you're looking at the relationships, and you're looking at how these interactions between these relationships. So on the surface, it can be a little intimidating, but I think if you start to look at it, and if you have company leaders that are really engaged, and then you look at the tools, the cost-effective tools that are out there, it doesn't really need to be all that daunting. And also the fact that you can look at your kind of inherent barriers you may have to effective business partnering and FP&A analytics maturity and driver-based planning, and we can, if you remove the inherent barriers, when you look to get from A to B, the mountain is not quite as high as you think. So sometimes I tell folks, when you do an assessment internally, sometimes you look at where you are and where you want to be, and you look up and you're like, oh man, we're going to have to climb Mount Everest here. But when we start to really look at things and look at, okay, what are some things we can do at low cost, people, process, technology? Okay, now this is something that we can accomplish. We may have to do it in stages. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive here. So leveraging drivers that matter. So again, that first piece. Again, it depends. Where you stand depends on where you sit. So some people, this is still a challenge, and it's something that you want to look at, something you want to assess right now after this webinar. Make sure have this conversation. It should be having. They should have it at the C level, but that should be coming down to our company leaders. So basically, in order to achieve XYZ, in order to achieve our objectives, right? What needs to happen? XYZ, and or if certain things change, our progress will be derailed or accelerated. How? So some of these drivers, just some points to ponder. Are they industry specific? It's possible. Are they company specific? I think they should be, because you really need to identify, understand your competitive advantage. And so that should be driving your company value. Are they company size specific? Possibly, but in today's world, I think it's not as big a consideration just because of all the tools and automation tools. So I don't believe that technology is a competitive advantage anymore. So some of these company size specific drivers may not be as relevant. And then company risk tolerance specific, that's something that can be looked at as well. So again, just giving you some background on a slide just to take a little look at it, but you definitely need to understand, measure, and monitor the drivers that matter. Again, starting at the macro level, the company value. And then I mentioned before how how the value drivers are changing, just some interesting research of what I mentioned earlier. So some research from the digital imperative, measure and manage what's next. From the CIMA, there is a link to the study there. So I think I forgot to mention, if you would like to receive a copy of the presentation today, please go ahead and send me an email, Ernie at 360thoughtleadership.com, and we'll make sure that we get those slides to you. And the webinar link to the recording of the webinar will be sent to you by our webinar partner, Senage. So let's take a look at some of these value drivers. So some of you in finance CFOs who haven't seen this slide, you'll be a little shocked. And so again, we look at customer satisfaction, customer relationship. We expect to see business process. But again, we're starting to look at our people and our reputation. That's changed because of obviously change from the internet, all the online exposures that we have, and opportunities to manage our reputation. So not done right, this can really impact our value. Of course, the quality of our people, that is really what drives the value that we deliver to our customers, right? Customer satisfaction, what's the value? Customer relationship, we got to have the relationship to understand what they want and what they need before they need it. And we also need to make sure that the perception of what we think we're offering our customers in terms of value aligns with what their perception is as well. So if you look at this exercise of relating KPIs to top value drivers at the company level, just as an example, and so, but you'll see some of these are related to some departmental KPIs as well, but it's just an interesting exercise to go through and look at the top KPIs that we have. Again, so how does data quality affects quality of business process? So employee productivity, right? What do we need from there, right? Quality of people, and then of course we start to think, oh, at the departmental level, where do we look at that at? We have to look at HR, we have to look at our managers, and so it's just an interesting exercise to put your value drivers right down on the bottom here, and yours could be different, something an executive discussion, hopefully a discussion, maybe an all company meeting discussion, and then look at what these relationships might be. So KPIs, so how do we incentivize, right? Employee productivity. Employee productivity goes up. What does that mean? Employee satisfaction goes up. So again, I think that's an interesting exercise. And then you can use your data and your analytics to verify those, see which ones matter most, and really focus on those. So that leads me well to our second polling question. I would share with me, please, how you would characterize your company's understanding of key drivers of your financial results. So we have limited at best, adequate, needing of improvement, good, it's becoming a key focus, ideal, it's under constant analysis, or lastly, you just don't know. So I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today, this one as well. And just want to remind you that I can take your questions at any time in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. So we'll go ahead and take a quick peek at the results, and then we'll go ahead and talk about some keys to driver-based and dynamic planning success. So let's go ahead and close polling question. Let's share those results. So I'm glad to see that 17% of you is ideal. So that's fantastic. And so I think we see, an opportunity. So we still have well over 50% that are adequate, limited, or I don't know. So that would be, I always try and incent folks to take actions after the webinar. So that is something that I would absolutely encourage my treasury leaders, my finance leaders, my FP&A leaders to have those conversations. I think that's critically important to the value of FP&A to understand those key drivers. So thank you very much, everyone, for answering that polling question. So let's take a look, and this is one of my takeaway slides Those of you who attend the webinars that I moderate, you'll recognize when I point these out, but these are just things that I like to point out that I would print out, put my practitioner hat on. So driver-based and dynamic planning for just about everything, right? You need to have executive focus. But one of the things that we need to work on and promote is a strategic focus on agility. So we really need to get that concept. Maybe it's an unspoken rule that we want to be agile in our business, but the way that we do things, in particular the budget, really puts roadblocks. I call it strategic anchor. So we got to make sure that we don't have that strategic anchor on our company. We want to look to short planning cycles so we're not locked in. We need to have the right technology for collaborative planning. So the ability to communicate, have one single view of the truth, collaborate in real time, message possibly with our internal teams. And then we really need to have scenario modeling is absolutely key to have that business agility. It's really important to have buy-in from line of business managers. So I think we need to make sure in the who's ever the FP&A ultimate leader that we have, we invest in building those relationships with the business managers. And so the business managers don't look at us as a pest to give me the budget number and have them say, I want to raise it by 5%, lower than 5%. They need to understand the drivers of their budget, and they need to understand, okay, you're giving me the drivers of your budget. We want to make sure that we are spending in areas that are impacting the value that your department offers. You know, what are the key 3 to 5 things of value that your department offers the company? And so, you know, how do we allocate your budget to maximize the impact of those on our company value, our strategic objectives? You need data, fact-based decision making. Again, we all have intuition, and some folks, especially in manufacturing where I work, we have folks that have been working in our company for 50 years. So they have some absolutely fantastic intuition. Do I want to go against that intuition? Absolutely not. If I want to challenge it, I better have some data to back things up. So I think it's a mindset of, okay, I don't want to turn off my intuition, but I want to tweak my intuition to be based on data. So when I get to the point where my intuition is, you know, has that data component, then I'm able to look forward and make accurate projections because I understand what the data is telling me. And then you have to have a commitment to the continuous improvement of alignment. So procedures, process, and systems. So let's pivot to what I call business intelligence. And so I see is key is we are delivering information and analysis to drive decision. So what is business intelligence? So I have this conversation with folks all the time. I think the majority of companies, they deliver business information. That's different from business intelligence. If information is not impacting decisions or informing decisions, then it is business information. So business intelligence done right needs to enable enterprise-wide visibility. So it facilitates data-driven decision-making across departments. Me, I'm a treasury and finance guy. We got to go sales, AP, AR, marketing, and it facilitates more productive relationships. We're looking at the same information. We're having a collaborative conversation. What information do we need to be more effective? And then as we go down to that departmental level, we want to make sure there's relationships. We have the information to maximize relationships with our customers, suppliers, and our bank partners as we start to take that down a level so the information that we have, integrability across system, tells us how to bring more value to our customers. And a part of that, which I talked on a webinar that was actually earlier today, was the importance of the communication from our accounts receivable team, right, with our customer. We need to know what's going on there. We need to make sure we're not aggravating our customers. How can we make sure everyone's a good partner with our customers? Same thing with suppliers. On the accounts payable side, what conversations are being had with our suppliers? We need to make sure that we are good partners to our suppliers. With our customers, what does that mean? We can control when we get paid and if we get paid. With our suppliers, we can control how we get paid and then when we pay. And that's tremendously value for our working capital optimization, our cash conversion cycle, and optimizing our capital structure, which allows us to fuel our company growth. So let's go ahead and take a pause here in our next polling question, asking you to share how you would describe the prevalence of data-driven decision-making at your company. A small percentage, a decent percentage, but less than half, about half of your decisions, and then the vast majority of your decisions are based on data. And then E, I don't know. Again, I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all the polling questions. And then as you answer this polling question, and then when you start to look at the answer, then you start to say, what is the reason behind this? So what do I need to do? Or what can I do? So how do I make sure that I'm facilitating data-driven decision-making? What data is needed? Where do we get that data from, right? How do we make sure it's quality data? And then how do we disseminate that information and analyze the information and tell the story behind the numbers? So let's go ahead and close the polling question. Let's go ahead and share the results. And I'm happy to see that we've got 32%. The vast majority are based on data. But then again, see, we've got over 40%, which are a decent, a small, or don't know. So at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to obviously maximize the prevalence of data-driven decision-making at your company. Obviously, some of you are shaking your head, well, there has to be ROI to it. Well, you're absolutely right. But when you start to invest in different areas of technology, you need to take a look at the value of that system. So you want to make sure that system is not in a silo. So there's systems integrability, right? And then you'll start to see that information that you now have access to can inform better decision making across the entire enterprise, not in a specific area. So thank you very much. So now let's talk about BBI a little bit more. And again, I mentioned it's business information versus performance reporting done right, which is business intelligence. So we're going to go ahead and just to review, take a look back here. So we have our top level drivers and then these value drivers. So we want to look at what information, what reporting do we need to do to deliver the right information on those KPIs. So this is at the aggregate level. So we're looking at business intelligence at the aggregate level. So we're drivers of company value. What we need to do is we need to look at what information do we need to provide based on these KPIs. And some of these KPIs you may need to create surveys for employee productivity, customer service, and pipeline and retention. So we need to understand, okay, how do we inform, how do we manage and measure those KPIs, and then eventually look at the relationships there. So that's the macro level. So let's dive down a little bit. So let's look at accounts receivable. So we want to look at what are the key values of our accounts receivable function? What impacts the value? So how are we getting paid? Being most efficient in how we're getting paid, the cost of it, the time, and if we're getting paid at all. So look, here's our company top level drivers. So here's my AR KPIs, average issue to have a resolution with a customer, DSO, bad debt write-offs, and then we start to see the relationships between customer satisfaction. So those are our high level relationships. So it's not necessarily that we need to be the one that's offering the information on all these KPIs. It's our job to look and see, do we have the systems that are empowering our departmental leaders with these KPIs, and then can we be involved if we need to in the systems that are giving us information on dashboards and how to identify trends. So we may need to take some time, right, and teach our company leaders, make sure that their analytical acumen is up to speed. So we need to make sure that we have the mindset of finance. We show them, and I guarantee they will be engaged when you start to say, oh, it's really eye-opening every day when you come to work. If you can see how what you're doing impacts performance, impacts the bottom line, it makes a difference. It makes you feel like you're having an impact each and every day. And then you take that down a step lower to the people that work with you, and then it's a culture of data-driven decision making. So I like to share this example from my friends at High Radius. So this vicious reporting cycle I would call a business information and not business intelligence. So common, this is an AR example. You have a lot of input sources. You have someone extracts the data. manually builds the reports, maybe in Excel. You send the same report to everyone. Finance executives, functional managers, again, we've already talked about how the perspectives are different, the KPIs are different, that they should focus on those different value drivers because they should go from the bottom up. There should be alignment there. And then what happens in this case, they don't get what they want. They need more insight. They need more reports. Guess what happens? Your FP&A team is wasting their time. I guess it is wasting their time on low value activities. They're not adding strategic value. So that's what we call the vicious reporting cycle, and this never ends. So on the reporting side, one of my old bosses, he made a very bold maneuver. He was a CFO. He just stopped sending out reports until people asked for them. I would not say that you go that far, but one of the things that you might want to do and have your departmental leaders do is just say, okay, or if you're controlling the distribution of reports, we're sending these reports to who, why are they getting them, what is the value, how can we make these better, are there other reports that we can offer you that are going to impact your decision making? So this is what we really need to look at. Just again, that AR example, you want to look at the need for reporting. Your finance and functional managers. So on a high level, executives will want to look at high cash flow analysis, high level monitoring like AR processing costs. Your functional managers want to look at process effectiveness and their employees. So we don't want to be pumping the same information to everyone. So understanding what people need to maximize the performance of themselves and their team, and that all lines up with our drivers of company value. And this is what I call a reporting done right. So you automatically extract the data, automatically builds the reports, segregate and customize those dashboards. You have two different audiences there. You have need for more insight. Almost always it's no. And then there's self-service reporting on those dashboards. So again, it's having the relationships there, that business partnering. Okay, my AR manager, what is it that you need to be successful every day? My CFO, departments you're really keeping an eye on. How do we give you the metrics? CEO, what are the metrics that you want to see that we believe and verify are impacting our company value, or if you want to look at it from a public company, impacting our stock price? I love that we're getting towards the customers and the employees, because that is really what it's all about. The relationships with the customers and our employees' actions are what drive the value that we provide to our customers. The value that we provide to our customers should correlate with our company success. So just looking at business intelligence, the value of accounts receivable. So I'm not going to read through the slide. This is a slide I might print out. So I'm just trying to convey how you look at business intelligence, the value of it, right? So what are we getting from those reports? What is my AR manager? What are the things that he may be looking at to add value? So how are we adding value through the information and interaction and time that we have when AR is involved in our strategic planning? And then if, again, we look at key drivers of accounts payable, we can drive down again. It's an interesting slide to look at here and start to look at the relationships relative to your company. And then if we want to look at business intelligence, sorry, I whipped by that one too fast. So now we're looking at accounts payable. Again, we want to look at how these things all align. So time spent resolving AAP issues, that's related to the quality of our business process, the quality of our people. So we can start to look at and understand these relationships. And if we look at the value, right, of giving our accounts payable folks the right information when they need it, you see the cost to process a single invoice. That's a tremendous cost savings. Oh, what does this do? Process an invoice. If we get that down, that gives us strategic agility. Again, we're impacting the effectiveness. We're also impacting the productivity of all employees that are involved in the AP process. If you've never been in the weeds on an AP process, it's amazing how many people, processes, and systems are impacted. So we want to make sure that we are delivering business intelligence to our AP professionals as well, and other key departmental leaders. Again, another screen not to read through, but in the content, again, you want to look at business information. No, we want to deliver business intelligence. How are we impacting decisions on in accounts payable? How are we empowering our accounts payable team to take control of how we pay suppliers and when we pay suppliers. You need to connect the dots. And then a few slides on our just some FP&A trends and benchmarks from the survey that I was involved in, the FP&A Empowerment Survey, just to give you some perspective, give you some points of reference, try the little benchmark, and we have launched the survey again this year. So we appreciate it if you would take the time to fill out the survey. 311 responses, so we had a lot of diversity, manufacturing, software, banking, financial services, consulting. And one of the things that I will note in terms of the survey results, we actually have a link to a BI tool that will let you interactively play around with the survey results. So if you're interested in that, please send me an email. So before we dig into that, let's go back. So we talked about we need the right data, the right tools, and the right people, process, technology, right? So we're going to start with the data. So what we've seen in our survey is there's a lot of struggles in terms of the data. So just benchmarking a little bit, and I'm going to add this to my survey results, just from your perspective at your company in terms of the data available, support the FP&A function. A is cat's meow, right data, right time. B is you might have the right data, it's not timely. C is data overload. D is data shortage. You're making progress. And E is data shortage. It's not really a priority. So in order to be mindful of our time, I'm going to go ahead and just leave that question up for a couple seconds, and then I'll just make some comments on what we've seen in our survey results that I have not seen changing this year, and hopefully we'll be able to see. Hopefully we'll see some progress from our survey this year from what we've seen last year. So let's go ahead and close that. Let's take a quick look. Actually pleasantly surprised to see that we have 18% of you right data, right time. And then again, it's 30. I'm a little bit surprised that we have 27% in data overload. So that to me says that, okay, it's time to take a look at what I call the data diet, right? So we're getting all this data, which are the key drivers, right? Look at the data, look at the key drivers, and then you may be on data overload at the FP&A level, but it might not be data overload from your accounts payable professional. So you don't just want to sit there and say, FP&A, I'm getting all this data, it's worthless. Well, let's have a conversation and see, okay, where's this data coming from? Who asked for it? What's the purpose? And then as we go on that data diet, it's almost it's a individual diet, right? So you definitely want the CEO to be on a very strict data diet, right? And then your departmental managers, he may like the data a little bit more. But then some of your folks that are really in the execution stage, the manager level, specialist level, these people love data. So you need to be careful what they're doing with it, but they're probably going to have more of an appetite of data, and they're the ones that can help us figure out what's the data that's really valuable to us. So again, I'm glad to see that we have 18% of you in the right data, right time. What we saw from our survey is that you guys had a better percentage that have access to the right data at the right time. We saw more folks in the not timely data and less in the data overload. So just some interesting statistics there. Again, the survey results I think are pretty fascinating in that you can go in and click on demographics, so you can search by industry, company size, other things, and so you can really see what things look like in terms of where your company is at. And then we talked about the importance of technology. What we've seen in our research is very much analytical immaturity. This is the one that floored me. Ease of scenario analysis, only 10% said it was easy or very easy. So I think this is where I'd like to see very easy. I'd like to see this number. Everyone should have a goal to be very easy. And then if we look at the tools, right, of course these are related. 43% are at that intermediate level, and then we only have 15% at the cloud level and 2% I don't know if we're quite ready for the cutting edge machine learning, but it depends on where you sit, right? But so that's just interesting for me to see. I've demonstrated, okay, these are areas that are important for us to deliver value and conquer that last mile. And technological immaturity is absolutely an inherent barrier to success. Just some more statistics about immaturity. You were kind enough to share with me where you were at in FP&A maturity. So you're not alone. 55% were in a basic or developing state of maturity. And then our other polling question, only 41% of companies are based on data. So again, that's something where we want to see where we can move the needle there. And then I just wanted to share in terms of a technology tool, this is something you can take a look at, and I love this photo. So this is really what some leading companies are using: cloud-based budgeting, planning, and forecasting tools. You have automated planning, cash flow projection, your real-time KPIs, you have efficient collaboration and reporting, you have dynamic analysis, and then you have scenario-based forecasting. So it extends your general ledger, it facilitates, allows dynamic planning, forecasting, and analysis. It allows for pre-programmed financial logics, for the no formulas, macros, or links to maintain. Inputs and consolidation are controlled and guided, and so automatically delivers cash flow projections. So just an interesting thing to look at if you're looking to invest in this type of solution. Those are things that you should look for as part of your value proposition. So drivers of FP&A success, from good study to redelivering business value, the role of FP&A in execution. The best performing companies do a better job of translating strategy into actionable plans. They do a better job of variance analysis, right? We need to have that visibility, that analytical ability. The best performing companies are models of agility. They take action when they fall behind on their financial or operational goals, or things change in the market, or they make acquisitions. They do a better job of holding people accountable, right? And then to go to the next level, what we talked a lot about today, that last mile, identify what drives success, but developing measures. And then they don't only identify driver measures, they also establish long-term and short-term targets for those driver measures and those KPIs, and they develop specific initiatives and projects to achieve their targets, and they just do a better job of monitoring the results and tying them to incentives. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our final polling question as I share a few closing thoughts, and I will reach out to those individuals for any questions that we did not get answered. So these are really my 3 key takeaways. FP&A success is driven by effective business partnering, the right data, the right systems and processes that facilitate business agility. We want to make sure that we're doing things which maximize business agility and inform decision making. We want to impact decision making, and companies would do well to assess where you stand in terms of FP&A now analytics and business partnering maturity by leveraging an assessment tool, and they can help you define a path to optimizing the value delivered by FP&A. And I believe companies should identify, understand, and manage key drivers of value at the company level and at the departmental level. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the polling question up for another few seconds. Thank you very much to everyone who has answered all this polling question for me. And finally, I want to thank our thought leadership partner, Senage. We strongly appreciate their commitment to thought leadership. They have some great resources on their website. And finally, to you, for the audience, thank you so much for your valuable time. And I want to let you know if there's any information that you want to dig deeper on any of the content for the webinar, please send me an email. And finally, make the rest of your day great, everyone.